Hello everyone, this is my spoiler review for Avengers End Game. I'm going to go over as much detail as I can remember. So here we go. Basically, I was a bit confused at the very start of the film because I expected the film to go in the narrative of all the way through from the snap, like a fluid narrative, but it didn't go that way. What happened was that for the first about 10-20 minutes, it showed what we see in the trailers. It showed, the heroes in distress at losing. It showed Tony in space. It showed a touching scene of Tony and Nebula, playing a game where they flicked this folded metal or paper over the hands, and it was like a goal game. Also, it basically showed the heroes looking for Thanos, wanting to get revenge. It showed Thor really angry. Tony was sending messages to Pepper, touching messages, heartfelt ones, saying that he loved her. He wishes that he had one more surprise left for her. That's when he was saved by Captain Marvel, who obviously picked up his messages, or Earth did. So she quickly landed him on the planet. He got back. He was in distress. He was turning against Captain America. He just, trust had been broken. He even mentioned something about. He mentioned Age of Ultron, where he said, "I told you we needed a shield around the planet for an event to come. Well, this event has come, and we have lost out." And Captain America was like, "Well, I've lost too." But I think Tony was so full in his grief, full in his emotion and his anger, and of losing Peter, of losing the battle, that he didn't. I don't think he realised that, yes, Steve Rogers was hurting too. So I'm just having a bit of a coffee. So basically, Tony then faints from exhaustion from space, because obviously he was in space for quite a while. I think it just messed his body up. So I think they were scanning space for Thanos. They found that Thanos had actually used the gauntlet again, and they pinpointed the planet which he used the gauntlet on. So they flew quickly to his planet, landed down, had a little fight with him in his farmhouse thing, and they realised that Thanos was actually injured from using the gauntlet again. And the reason why he was injured is because he destroyed the stones so that the Avengers could not come after him and rewrite time. Basically, so that his actions were permanent. Hearing this, Thor had cut his hand off, but hearing that there was no hope, Thor cut Thanos' head off, which I must admit I did laugh at, because funnily enough, his last sentence to Thor before he did the click was, "You should have aimed for the head." And then Thor did, and he cut his head off, and I think it was Bruce Banner or something like that saying, "Why did you do that?" And Thor went, "I aimed for the head," which was a callback to Infinity War, a callback to how Thor was looking to get vengeance. So basically, it had Thor walking out of the house. It had Nebula closing her father's eyes, I think it was, and then it went to 5 years later, which I was sitting there, to be honest, at the time going, what? Okay, so where did they go from here? So basically, it's 5 years later. The world is trying to move on from the snap, and the heroes they're not doing well. And there's open communication. Rocket's gone to space. Captain Marvel's gone to space. Black Widow and War Machine are looking for Hawkeye, sorry, not Hawkeye, don't know where that came from. Are looking for Hawkeye, who basically has gone rogue because he witnessed his family basically disappearing. Um, and Hawkeye is now Ronin, and what he's doing is he's hunting criminals down and he's killing them brutally. Um, and War Machine said that he went to Mexico, where the latest scene where Hawkeye was, he was killing all these criminals, and he said he doesn't want to find Hawkeye because of the way he left the criminals. He left them in an inhumane way. So Natasha, Black Widow, is basically, she kept on bringing up like, oh, I made a mistake myself. No one is unsavable. So that was her mission, to get Hawkeye back. Elsewhere, Captain America is in a therapy group, kind of like AA in a church, and it's for people who are trying to recover and trying to move on in their lives from the snap, from their loved ones disappearing, and he's trying his best as well because he can't move on. I think he was full of guilt, and yeah, it was a touching moment. So he basically goes back to where Black Widow is, and they're having a chat. And while they're having a chat, obviously in the trailer you saw Ant-Man suddenly turn up at the gate, and I'll come to where Ant-Man is right now. Actually, basically in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ant-Man went into the quantum realm through that brown van, and while that happened, Hank Pym, I think it was, and his daughter basically were part of the snap, and they turned to dust, leaving Ant-Man in the quantum realm. And so he came back when his machine was activated by a mouse of all things, and he came back and he was disorientated because he was like, what's happened? And we find out in the film that the quantum realm is between times. So basically what happened in the Thanos snap in time doesn't affect him. So he was safe from that. So this then, when all the heroes are joined together and like Ant-Man's trying to understand what's going on, they meet up with the Hulk, which there's a very humorous, and I even laughed because I was like, what have they done to the Hulk? The Hulk basically has got a balance, half and half, of Banner and the Hulk now, and it's Banner talking but with the Hulk's body and his green, and it was quite funny to see. I couldn't really get used to it because I'm used to the Hulk tearing stuff apart. So basically, they all joined together, and like Banner and Ant-Man talk about time travel and how it most likely could work in the quantum realm. They then quickly go to Tony Stark, who's living on the countryside. He's got a daughter, and basically, sorry, I've just taken my phone messaging. He's got a daughter, and basically, he's moved on, or trying to, because what happened with Peter, it still lingers. So they go up to him at the lake house, and he said, "No, I'm not going to do it." But when they say that there could be a possibility that everyone could come back if they travelled back in time, literally, it stuck in Tony Stark's mind when he saw a picture of Peter. So he has a word with Pepper, and then he starts working. I think he did. Sorry if I got it wrong. And then he solves the equation, which then leads on to a very touching and very funny moment with his daughter, where obviously I think he puts her to bed and he says, "I love you 3000," which is now a common trend on Facebook and on social media. he then talks to Pepper, saying, "I've solved the thing with time travel, and I feel like I need to go." He asks Pepper to try and stop him, and she says, "I've never. One of my many flaws is I've never been able to stop you." You know, they've got like a solid relationship going on, and it's a beautiful one. So basically, he then drives all the way to where the Avengers are doing their time travel tests, and there was a very funny moment where Ant-Man went back in time and he came back as an old man, and then he came back as a baby in the suit, and then he came back as himself, and he's shaken up and he's like, I think someone wet my suit. I'm not sure if it was baby me, old me, or just me. That was really funny. And then Tony Stark came along and said, "Look, I'll fix the problem, but we've got to, if we're going to do this, we've got to do it on one problem, on one condition, that what we do doesn't affect what we have right now." Because obviously he's got a wife, he's got a daughter, he's happy, he's kind of moved on. So Steve Rogers says, "That's fine, yes." And they both came to a level of, we trust each other. And then obviously they find Hawkeye, who is now Ronin and is beating up this Yakuza bloke or something like that. And Black Widow brings him in, and you could just tell that he's a guy who's been through hell. He has been through a lot of crap, and more or less they're talking about time travel, of how basically there's a little running joke of how Back to the Future is a lot of crap, because if you do something in that time, it doesn't affect the future. I think they've set that role in Avengers End Game. So basically, they find these little like pin particle things, which they put into their suit, which allows them one journey back in time, and this is when they call it the kind of the time heist, so that they can steal all the time stones. I actually, to be honest, really enjoyed this bit because it was a nostalgia trip back to Avengers Assemble. It was back to the start of Guardians of the Galaxy 1, where there was a funny clip of Chris Pratt dancing, but instead of the Redbone song "Come and Get Your Love," all you can hear is Chris Pratt singing it, and War Machine goes, "So he's an idiot." So basically, they go back to the invasion of New York, and they try and, like, Tony and Iron Man and Ant-Man the Hulk try and steal the time stone, and it was just a touching reminder of, this is where we started. And then they added in, like, before Hydra took over in Captain America Civil War, and there were people from Hydra who were connected to the Battle of New York, and it was like just looking at all the arcs of Captain America, and it felt like a completion, really. Sorry, I'm really trying to think. It felt like a completion of Captain America's story, and also something then happened where they failed their journey, failed their mission, and they had to go further back in time to an army base where Tony Stark's dad is. So this was another completion of Tony Stark's saga. Like, looking back, looking back now, I just got this, they've actually, while doing that, it's like a completion of both Captain America's saga and Tony Stark's saga, because this is the last films they're ever going to do. So while they're getting the Tesseract, while they're getting everything else, Black Widow and Hawkeye go to where Gamora died, where the Red Skull's guarding the Soul Stone, and basically they find out, if you want the Soul Stone, one of you has to die. And then there's a fight, and it's really emotional. I actually teared up first time I watched it. Second time, I was fine. But the first time I watched it, I really teared up because like they're beloved characters. So they're fighting. Um, Clint Hawkeye basically said like all the things I've done, I don't want to live anymore because of that. But Natasha's like, let me do this one good thing, and you can have your family back. You know, it was like two best friends fighting each other. In the end, it was Natasha Black Widow dying, giving her life, and it was like when they all came back, when they all had the Soul Stones and the stones for the Infinity Gauntlet. It was like they came back and they realised Natasha's not there, and it was like all the Avengers were broken. Like she was like kind of the glue for them all. Yes, she didn't have any superpowers. Yes, she didn't have any abilities, but she was like the kick-ass ninja, sexy lady, you know. And she was like the glue for them all. There's one thing which I did forget when War Machine and Nebula got the stone from the Guardians of the Galaxy. At that time, also, old Nebula and Thanos and old Gamora, back in time when they were all evil, saw glimpses of what the future Nebula's doing, who's now turned good, and they capture the good Nebula and put the evil Nebula in their place. Because Thanos knows now that his mission is a success. You know, he even sees a image of himself saying, "I am inevitable." So he just knows he's going to win. He even sees his death, but he knows his mission for the Infinity Gauntlet is going to succeed. So basically, he they swap Gamora, no, not Gamora's, Nebula's, and while Nebula is the good Nebula's on the ship, she reasons with old Gamora, saying, "You hate our father. Do you want to know what he did to you?" So turning Gamora away from Thanos. But yeah, back to the Avengers. They've all got the Infinity Stones. Tony Stark's made this gauntlet, and then it enters into the third act, which I must admit is the most incredible act I've ever seen in a superhero movie. Basically, the Hulk wears the gauntlet, clicks his finger, because he says, you know, I can take the power of the gauntlet. No human can, so, you know, no human can take the power of the gauntlet. So he clicks his fingers, he brings everyone back, apart from Black Widow, because once she dies with the Soul Stone, it's like, you know, you can't come back from that. And he even said, I tried to bring her back. So basically, they're all realise that everyone's come back, and before they have even a chance of celebrating, Thanos' ship, which travels through time because the bad Gamora programs the machine to bring his ship back, which, you know, she shrunk down, I think, using the Pym particles. Thanos' ship comes out and literally bombs the Avengers base. They're like in shock. They're buried under the rubble. They're like, what is going on? Thanos then calmly steps down, who, by the way, is played by the magnificent Josh Brolin. His voice is incredible, and his acting is incredible too. So Thanos comes down, sits there, is waiting for Thor, who I forgot to mention is very cringeworthy in this film. He's not like the muscular mighty Thor. He's actually fat, he's actually sad, he's weepy, and I personally didn't like it. But basically, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America talk about the gauntlet, saying, where's the gauntlet? And they said, oh, buried underneath there, which is actually with Hawkeye, who's running away from Thanos' creature army. And basically Thanos sits there and he's like, you know, he kind of like taunts them, and taunts the Avengers, saying, you know, you couldn't live with your failure, so you had to go back in time and try and stop me again. So more or less, the main battle begins. They're fighting each other, and Thanos is winning. He's winning, and they're all tired. They're getting tired, and then the most beautiful part of this, the most beautiful part, was when suddenly it's Thanos and Captain America. All the other heroes are picking themselves up again, and Thanos lands his army down. The odds are against them, and then Doctor Strange's portals open, and out walks Black Panther with his army going Ibombe, and then all the heroes walk out, and literally they go Avengers Assemble. I must admit, when I was in the cinema, that everyone around me was going, "Wow, that's incredible." So they charge, everyone charges. This touching moment of when Tony Stark and Peter join up and Tony Stark hugs Peter. There's, it's just all of the people who vanished, all the people who like turned to dust. It's like a vast cast of stars, and it was just perfectly done. There's actually so much to talk about. One of the main stars in, them coming out of there is Scarlet Witch, who was so full of venom against Thanos, saying, "You stole everything from me." Thanos is like, "I don't even know you," and she goes, "You will," and literally collects all the earth and wraps it all around him, which is actually amazing. It was amazing to see, and I was like, "Yes, you go, girl," take him. But yeah, all in all, I found that the most amazing cinematic masterpiece ever. There was a moment where Captain America picks up Thor's hammer, which Thor got when he went back in time and he spoke to his mum, and he connects the hammer with Stormbreaker the axe. But basically, Captain America picks up Thor's hammer, and the people next to me, everyone clapped hands, everyone cheered, because it was one of those moments where we're like, "Oh my gosh, he's actually got Milnor," and everyone went crazy. So basically, they're fighting. It was the most intense fighting I've ever seen. I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, "Don't you dare give Thanos the gauntlet." And it got to a bit where Thanos thought he'd won, so he clicked his fingers, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, not again!" And nothing happened. What happened was Tony Stark had swapped the stones into his own gauntlet, and Thanos had said to him, I'm inevitable." And Tony Stark looked at him and said, "Yeah, well, I'm Iron Man," and clicked his fingers. For me, I think that's kind of a full cycle of Tony Stark's story. The MC universe started with Tony Stark saying, "I am the first superhero, I am Iron Man." And then it ended with Tony Stark saying, "I am Iron Man." I think that's a full circle of the narrative of his whole story, leading all the way around the 22 films to here. Unfortunately, and it's a really sad scene, Tony Stark passes away. He dies, and there were a lot of tears. I teared up. I'm not going to lie, I really teared up. Because Robert Downey Jr. has portrayed Tony Stark down to perfection. Like, absolute perfection. And you couldn't have thought of anyone else to play him. Like, you couldn't have thought of anyone else to play Thor. You couldn't have thought of anyone else to play Captain America. So basically, Thanos' army turns to dust after Tony Stark's snap, and the heroes win. But then there's a lot of Tony Stark, and it's touching. Peter Parker gets really emotional. And yeah, it really shocked me that Tony Stark died. I'm not going to lie. Then, what happened next was they had the funeral for Tony Stark. All the cast was there. Then they're talking about, we need to take these time stones back because, what if someone comes looking for them? So Captain America, I think, takes them back, and I think he destroys them or something like that, so that no one can use them again. And instead of coming back to the present day, he decides to stay and live his own life with Peggy, which is kind of a really good circle with him as well, because his whole story was, when he went into the ice, he was talking to the love of his life, and he's lived in that shadow of not seeing her, and now he's got a second chance, so he took it. And yeah, so more or less, that's what happened. There's little hints of what's happening in the future, and obviously you've seen my Spider-Man reaction trailer, and yeah, you know, I'm not going to go into detail about that, because I'll give an in-depth review about the film when I've seen it. But yeah, that was my spoiler review. I still 100% believe that and feel that Avengers End Game is one of the best superhero films ever made. And there's a few people who have said that they found it boring. They found the start boring. I thought it was kind of a perfect start because it's setting the scene. Like, the heroes aren't going to be jumping for joy that the whole of the population turned to dust and they lost. It's setting that somber scene of like, well, where do we go from here? How do we pick ourselves up? It's, yeah, it's one of those. And it's a 3-hour film, so, we've got to probably start it slow anyway. But yeah, for me, I'm going to give that film a solid 10 out of 10. And I probably will go see it tomorrow. Today, I'm going to go see Detective Pikachu and, give my review of that probably tomorrow. So expect that. So yeah, Avengers End Game, here hands down 10 out of 10, one of the most perfect superhero films that's ever been made. But that's my opinion, so don't just take my word as gospel. I hope you enjoyed my review and listened to me babbling for half an hour. This is the longest review I've ever given. And if you liked my video, please press like, and if you want to subscribe to my channel, please subscribe to my channel, because this is the start of something for me. Thank you very much and have a good day.